So here we are with Nicky Henderson, our Unibet ambassador, just days away from the biggest show on turf, of course, the Cheltenham Festival, and very much looking forward to it, as I'm sure you are. It's a tense sort of week, but I'm sure for you, Nicky, it's an enjoyable time as well.
Once it starts and you get there, it's enjoyable. Yeah, the bit before it's quite tense. I think everybody will be pleased when it's sort of the preps are over and the show begins.
We've saddled 73 Cheltenham Festival winners. You are the leading UK-based trainer. You were, until quite a few years ago, the leading trainer overall until Mr. Mullins came and spoiled that party. The Unibet Champion Hurdle is a race you've got a fantastic record and you've won it 9 times before. We'll start with Constitution Hill. It appears that everything has gone much better than what you were in the lead up to last year's race, albeit, of course, he didn't run in the end.
Yeah, last year, to be fair, the year started. It started actually with a fighting fifth last year being abandoned. Then he came to Kempton for the Christmas hurdle. That was fine. Everything was great. But we were trying to go to the Unibet hurdle and he couldn't run because his scope was wrong. And then we were coming back into the champion hurdle. We thought we were all right. Kempton Gallop went disastrously wrong and he was sick after that. Then we got going and he got colic, and by the end of the season, we'd missed everything and he looked dreadful. Thankfully, he had another great summer with Charlie and Tracy Vigers, and bless her, she used to adore having him there. But he came in back looking really great, changed a few things around him, like his house, built him a new hotel to live in. And to be fair, 1 or 2 things, he did have a wind operation last summer as well. I do think that's probably helped. But in fact, I know it has. And Christmas hurdle, we weren't ready for the fighting fifth, so Gino went and came off the subs bench to do that, which was great. Then he came here to Kempton for the Christmas hurdle. It was great. That was the day I was expecting. He could have got beaten that day. But to be fair, Lossie Mouth probably didn't quite turn up herself either, so we got away with that. And then I've got to say my original intention was we don't need to do that again. We'll go straight to March. But he was just so well after it. You couldn't not go and take in the Unibet hurdle. And he had a lovely time. I mean, he ruined one of Cheltenham's hurdles, but that doesn't matter. He was terrific. And again, I wasn't really intending in coming to Kempton for a gallop, but he did a bit of work at home on Friday, and Nico felt it was still doing good, so he came and did that as well.
From what point of view did you and Nico think it would be a good idea to come for a racecourse gallop?
I think it amuses him as much as anything. I mean, I knew he was going to have to do about another 4. He'd need another 4 gallops probably at home to get here. And they can become fairly monotonous. I know he loves doing it, and he's very good at sort of telling young whippersnapper, young horses that they're not very good as he just goes straight past them. He probably enjoys it to a degree because he loves his work and he loves his life, I think. But, a day out like this does him the world of good. And it wasn't as if none of them were having a hard time. He certainly didn't have a hard time. He just had his usual bit of a laugh and a giggle. And like Sammy Tristan Davis said, when he goes past you, by gum, you know something's gone past you. He was flying.
I mean, he's 10 from 10. He's only been beaten once in his career. Amazingly, how that happened, I'll never know in a point-to-point over in Ireland. But do you feel that he is as good as he has ever been, or do you feel he's even better than what he was, say, two seasons ago?
I think it'd be hard to say he's better, but I do think he's as good as we've had him, yes. I do. I mean, obviously miles better than last year. But if you go back to his Supreme Novice Hurdle and Champion Hurdles, yeah, I mean, he is back in that sort of shape, definitely.
Obviously, we're not entirely sure which horses are going to be taking him on. We expect Lossie Mouth to take her chance. State Man, of course, a winner over in Ireland last time, and maybe Brighter Days Ahead. Do you feel it could prove to be quite a tactical race, and would you be also concerned about the fact that the £7 allowance that the mares get?
I can't see it being very tactical if Brighter Days Ahead comes, and I hear that might even have a pacemaker. So you could be pretty sure we're going to have a really solid gallop. Now that we do know doesn't worry him. They can go.
If anything, the faster.
He can travel, and he's got his comfort zone is quick, and so I wouldn't worry about somebody blitzing it if he's going too fast. Nico will be able to. He's a good judge. Nico, he's very solid at that, and he'll know if they're going too quick. And if it's one of them up there making the running and setting a fierce gallop, hopefully he should be able to tag them.
Okay, let's move on to day 2, the Champion Chase, the feature on the Wednesday. Again, a great record for you in this race. Altior won it twice. Sprinter Sakura won it, then regained his crown. You've got Jonbon this year, finally able to get to take his chance in the Queen Mother Champion Chase. He's 4-5 with Unibet. He's a 9-time Grade 1 winner. How is he, I suppose, is the first question.
Again, we're very happy he didn't come to Kempton because he doesn't need to come to Kempton for a gallop. He does his stuff at home. He'd only get here and fuss and sweat, and he doesn't need winding up anymore. It's completely opposite to us, Constitution Hill. Everything's gone well. He's been training very, very well. He'll have a school next week. He's got a couple of spins on the grass, and we're away. Paddy, who rides him every day, he says, I wish the race was tomorrow. He's in such good form. He is in very good form. And
he appears to, not that he wasn't sort of versatile before, but he just appears to be much more, the finished article, much more easier to sort of to manoeuvre. He's very sensible in his races. He's quite simple now. I suppose a few years ago you had to sort of ride him a little bit with kid gloves, so to speak.
Yeah, when he was a young horse, he had his sort of, he was entertaining. And you had to be very, very careful with him. Anything would upset him. And away days and things were a trauma to him and us. He just he just sweats a lot. And as each year goes on, he starts at the beginning of the year, he gets himself in a terrible, he sweats buckets. I mean buckets. And he's got a lot better, and we have our own little ways of getting around these things with earplugs and various other, keep the lid on it. Cheltenham's the atmosphere gets to quite a lot of these horses, and but he's got much better at it, and I think he can control himself, and we can control him. So hopefully, he gets to the start all right this time, and then we'll see. I think there's going to be a lot of pace. I'd be interested to see what's actually going to run.
As I say, often the Champion Chase tends to cut up. You see 4 or 5 runners this year. I think it could be quite a big field. Another question, Nicky, for you. Despite winning the Schlur Chase twice, a lot of people tend to think he doesn't handle Cheltenham that well. What would you say to those people?
Well, I can see their reasoning behind it, but I think if you've won the Schlur twice, you've got to say he doesn't do much wrong in it. It shouldn't bother him. I mean, Ascot's a big track, Sandown's a big track. He loves both of those. They're all up and down hills and down dales, and no, that's no problem to him. I can't believe it's the track. He goes left, he goes right. It'll just be interesting, to see what turns up. I mean, there's a couple that you'd have a lot of respect for, and I can see there being a very strong pace. But again, if it's not a strong pace, we'll make it a strong pace. So
that's the thing.
Somebody else
he's
wants
so
to go
versatile
quicker.
Now, isn't he? You can almost ride him any sort of way.
He'll go his gallop, but if somebody's going quicker, well, then so be it.
So we'll look at Thursday now. The Stayers Hurdle. You've won it twice. Russell back in '89 and Bacchanal in 2000. You've got one runner this year, Lucky Place. Very unexposed sort, but particularly impressive in the Rail Keel over 2.5. How confident are you that he can handle the step up in trip to 3 miles?
Certainly, hopefully would. Everything says he should do. He's been round Cheltenham, he's done that, at 2.5. That was a good performance. We could have run him in the 3 mile race on trials day, but that could have been very, very tough. I think he's a pretty tough horse, actually, but it would be a tough thing to do, and then, you've got to get them back in time for March. I'd thought freshen up rather than dig down. If you're going to find out whether you stay 3 miles, well, we might as well find out in the World Hurdle. he either gets it or he doesn't. Practicing ever, it wasn't going to tell us, except tell us to go nowhere else because there's no alternative.
But he's a horse who, 2-3 years ago, no one had even heard of it. There was no sort of reputation for him. And do you feel he's sort of almost slipped under the radar? Has he surprised you almost?
Well, he's young yet, though.
Yeah.
He's very young. I mean, he's only just come out of novices. And then last year, he's one of the few we did run. And he ran in the Coral.
Yeah.
And he ran a very, very good race indeed. He's probably our best performer of the whole festival last year. Well, Lucia was third at the Champion Hurdle. They were about the only two bright lights we had. He ran great. And he was meant to go novice chasing, but the novice chase program didn't have a door for him. I mean, it was crazy. We were trying to run a whole lot of them, and they had to split them up, and he was still sat there without a run, and I popped him in the Ascot Hurdle, and he won that well, which took us into Cheltenham, which has got us where we are. I'd have to be very keen on him because he's just got the right profile, he's got the right temperament for it. It won't worry him.
And the Stairs division is quite open as well, isn't it? There's no Paisley Park or big bucks.
No.
At
He'd appear on paper, he's probably as near the top of the English anyway. What is going to come? Tiapu, obviously, and Over the Lee, probably the other one.
Home of the Lee.
Home of the Lee.
Tiapu.
Yeah. They seem to be the sort of top Irish protagonists. I mean, they're good horses, but...
Not as good as Lucky Place.
Maybe not.
The Triumph Hurdle. This is a race you've got a particularly good record in, Nicky. You always tend to follow your juveniles. We've seen Lalumba and Palladium both have a little gallop round Kempton prior to this. Lalumba 2-1 with Unibet, Palladium 12-1. Both of them just had one run over hurdles in the UK. Has the betting got it right? Is Lalumba your number one hope?
Well, you'd have to say what he did at Ascot that day was visually impressive. Some of that form's worked out well enough. I would have liked the second horse to have seen that one win the Adonis, but the Adonis form still stacks up to a Lalumba. He's just got a very good, wonderful, laid-back temperament. He's only had 2 runs in his life. He's like a pro, and he jumps beautifully, and he travels, and he's done everything right. He's for the future. He's not your typical Triumph Hurdle horse. But on the other hand, he deserves to go there, and I think he probably deserves to be favourite. I mean, for once, we don't know what's coming from Ireland, but the William Mullins Racing Festival didn't seem to throw up anything very terrifying. I'm sure they've got plenty. The English look probably better. Old India Dock, East India Dock. That'll be a double East India Express and East India Dock, both coming in at Cheltenham. How about that? He does look quite good. He goes a good gallop, so there's going to be a hare. I just think he's a thorough horse. He's a chaser virtually for next year, but we'll see what happens.
Obviously, Sergino didn't get his chance to run in the race last year, but can you make any comparisons with the two at this stage, 2 weeks before Cheltenham?
Well, I can, because I couldn't tell you Lalumba is a certainty. If Sergino had got fit and well into the Triumph Hurdle last year, he would have been a certainty. I mean, I haven't seen many better 4-year-olds than he was at the time. He's very, very good. Sadly, he's not with us this year either, so he's missed 2 Cheltenhams out of 2, but one day we'll get him there.
So what can you tell us about Palladium? You had him entered in the Adonis. You decided not to run. What was the reasoning behind that?
Well, one was the reason and one was the outcome, because if I'd have brought him here, I wouldn't have run him, because that ground was horrible on Saturday. And luckily I put Lalumba was in the race as well, and we ummed and ahed which way to go, what to do, and finally decided just at the end of the day, do we need to do this? And our answer to that was no, we don't. You're too close to Cheltenham. I've run in it before, won in it before, and once certainly, if not twice, paid the consequences of trying to get a quick one more run in before and paying the penalty with injuries. And just didn't need it. Lalumba, we never really thought about running him again. Palladium in the first instance after his win at Huntingdon was that's where he ought to come to. He's come to here. And again, he's got a lot of experience on the flat. He knows all about racing. I just figured he didn't need to. And as I say, if I had brought him here, I'd be surprised if we hadn't taken him out on the day, because that wouldn't have helped them at all. That wasn't a good prep race.
I was at Huntingdon when he made his debut, and there were a few people, "Ooh, that wasn't quite impressive as we hoped," because of course he cost a few quid. What were your thoughts after that?
Yeah, I can see where that was coming from, but I mean, he was out on his own for an awful long way. He's a wonderful temperament for a colt. Laid back and doesn't fuss about anything. Eats, sleeps, drinks, works. A charming horse, absolutely, and a beautiful looking horse too. I mean, the idea is one day he's going to be a stallion.
So if we take out, your Constitution Hills and your Jonbons, of the other, which is a pretty good sub-team, which horse are you most looking forward to running? Which horse do you think has got the best chance, has the biggest value?
Mr. Coffey would be high on my list of the handicappers and of the better price horses with the lucky places and things like that. They've all got chances. So does everybody else.